This episode is brought to you by Hellmuth and Johnson, a top Minnesota law firm ranging from individuals to emerging startups to multinational Fortune 500 companies. Focusing on transactional law, litigation, and appeals, Hellmuth and Johnson attorneys are leaders in their field. David Hellmuth and Chad Johnson joined forces 30 years ago in 1994 with the goal of creating a premier law firm capable of handling complex and challenging cases efficiently and effectively. Today, Hellmuth and Johnson rank among the top 15 largest law firms in Minnesota with more than 70 Twin City lawyers serving clients in more than 30 legal practice areas. They offer a full suite of legal services to clients without sacrificing their original commitment to providing responsive and affordable legal representation. To learn more, go to their website, www.hjlawfirm.com. Today on the Curious Builder Podcast, we had Masha Romer and Leah Craig from WINC, and what a delightful interview. I loved hearing about each one of their backstories, as well as how they founded WINC, which is Women in Construction. So if you are looking for leveling up your business and you're a woman in construction, you definitely want to tune into this episode. If you're outstate and you want to start something like this would be an amazing listen to, really for any organization. I mean, some of the bedrocks of what they're doing to have a inclusive community, from starting with a board before they even have members, created this really unique organization tree that really has just sort of galvanized the state of Minnesota. And so if you're outstate, I'd highly recommend reaching out to them and starting something in your own state. And if nothing else, you're going to get all kinds of information about how you can support WINC, whether you want to be a sponsor or whether you want to attend some of their events. We'll have everything in the show notes. So without further ado, here's Masha and Leah. Welcome to the Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today, I am joined with Masha Romer and Leah Craig from WINC, Women in Construction in Minnesota. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on. Leah and I have known each other Masha and I have known each other for quite a while. Yeah. So maybe we'll start with you, Masha.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your history in the building and construction world here locally, and then we'll switch over to Leah, and then really most of it is going to be just speaking about and celebrating all that WINC is. But I think it's important for the listeners to understand some of the backstory.
Sure, absolutely. Should I go into the whole backstory?
I mean, just tell you a little bit. Yeah, give me 5-minute recap of who is Masha Romer.
Sure. So currently, I'll start with what I currently do, and then I'll go into the backstory. I currently work for Lelch. We're a lifestyle technology integrator. So that means audio, visual technology, recessed lighting design, basically any tech you see in your home. That's what we do. But I'm also the current WINC president and co-founder with Leah Craig, and that's what we'll be focusing on today, as you mentioned. But I was not always in the construction industry. I kind of fell into it, and I'm so lucky I did. And I've been in this career for the last, maybe like 14 years. But I was born in Moscow, Russia, and I came to the U.S. when I was 3 with my family, and we fled the communist government. It was 1989, and we got out, and I remember my parents just always talking about like their whole lives having the American dream and living the American dream, and they just couldn't wait to get out of the former Soviet Union and come and make a life here. And so from as far as I can remember, we were learning English and getting educated and pursuing, all the things that, we wanted to pursue here in this country. And so I went to college. I grew up in St. Paul and then Eagan, and then I went to college at the University of Minnesota, and I studied communications. And that was really, I just thought I like talking to people, like communications. That should be my degree. And what does that mean? I had no idea. But I graduated in 2008 during the Great Recession, and there weren't a lot of places hiring. And I went to a job fair, and I thought, okay, I like talking to people. Maybe human resources is a line of work for me. And at this job fair, I met a trucking company. And the trucking company was like, we want to hire you as our recruiter. And I was like, okay, that's like human resources-esque. Like, yeah, I could hire truck drivers. So that's what I went and did, my first job out of college. And it was very hard. The trucking industry, a lot of people might not know, or at least back then, it had 180% turnover rate.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. So there were more people like quitting and being fired than we were hiring. But my job was every week to bring in a new class of brand new trucking recruits. So I don't know where they had these lists of all these truck drivers, but like every week I was on the phone morning till 7 a.m. till 5 p.m.
So were you just cold calling them out of the blue?
Cold calling truckers.
Hi, this is Masha Romer. I'd like you to drive a truck for me. Like, what is this? Do you remember some of your lines?
Yeah, I mean,
do you have a script?
I had a script. I promised them their pay and their benefits and how great it was to work for, this company among all the other companies, how good we treat them, how many miles we promised them, how many loads they could deliver for us. I mean, it was like, I was basically selling to them why they should quit doing whatever they were doing right then and there and come work for us. And it was, okay, that sounds fun and cute, but it was really tough. I mean, let's say I had like a group of, 10 truckers that was coming in that week. Then I had to run their background checks and I would see horrible things. And this is, of course, not every trucker. I worked with some amazing truckers, but this is just part of the experience. There were some horrible things on those background checks, criminal records, all sorts of things. So maybe like 5 would pass that. And then maybe like 2 would show up actually to the class. And then I'd drive them around, take them to their background checks. I would do the drug test. I mean, I kind of like put my foot down. They tried to have me do the drug test, and I'm a pretty squeamish person. So once I had that cup of urine in my hand, I was like, that's enough. I cannot do this. So then, there were lots and lots of stories. Again, it was the recession and we were cutting costs. And I mean, they had me with the team trying to like clean trucks for a little bit. It was not fun and not pretty. And I was just, it seemed like,
looking back, what do you think you learned? Because I look at, if I was to summarize you to people that don't know you, because I feel like in Minnesota, like if you don't know who Masha is, like you must be under a rock. Because I feel like you know everybody. I can think of a handful of people that no matter where you go, you attend pretty much every event. You must have 700 days in your calendar year because you're everywhere. But where I was going with this, like I would describe you as a fearless communicator who is very engaging, very sincere, and very approachable. What I'm curious about, 2 things about just so far in your backstory is how much of that do you think is innate versus learned? This fearless communication. Like, did you think like seeing your parents, immigrate and even just your story or your personality? And then what did you learn, kind of during this trucking time before you got to James Hardie?
Right. Well, I feel like I was very, very naive. I kind of like thought everyone was a very good person and everyone delivers on what they promise. And if you say you're going to show up to my recruiting class this week and that you're so great, like I just didn't think that like people wouldn't show up or wouldn't be telling the truth or that people would have this tough stuff behind them on their records. So I think it taught me a little bit of reality, which was good. It's a good lesson to learn. But I think, from my parents' background, I always believed anything was possible because they at, 29 years old with a toddler took off not having a single dime to their name, not knowing the English language, just took off, made it here in America and just said, this is our new path in life and we're going to achieve what we're supposed to achieve.
Did you have any siblings at the time when they immigrated?
It was just
Do you have any
me.
siblings now?
Yeah, I have a sister who's actually 14 years younger.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, and we're really close. She's getting married this summer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so I think I just always thought like I was naive, yes, and it did teach me a little bit about the harsh reality of the world, but I still always had that like everything is possible and I can really like achieve anything I believe in. But also what it taught me was like, hey, I'm a salesperson. Like, what am I doing? I'm not in HR, which, HR is amazing and great, but that's not really my path. If I can sell these truckers on leaving whatever they're doing right now and coming to work for me at my company, I can really sell anyone on anything.
I think, it's interesting. You find parallels in other people's stories that sort of echo your own, oddly enough. So I was a communication major at the University of Minnesota in 2003. Wow. Yeah. And I like the way you wrote this in your kind of bio is it's a degree for people who don't have any idea what they want to do. Yeah. I can echo that statement, And so I'm not sure how much I learned. Oddly enough, having a podcast now, I mean, literally this would have been helpful information, had I absorbed it, however many years ago. But I think you have a massive degree in the figure it out factor and listening to people on the podcast and your story specifically right now. Sometimes those early years where it seems like they're really difficult and you're kind of being asked to do everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I think sometimes until someone asks you a question, you don't realize some of the attributes and things that you've learned, along the way. And maybe just so we don't run out of time, because I want to celebrate
Right,
WINC.
the
And
long
I think the
story, yeah.
backstory is important, but you worked for Cambria for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I met you when you would then work for James Hardie. And then you left and had, tell us about that until you get to Welch.
Yeah, absolutely. So at James Hardie, I was selling to builders, and Mark, you were one of my first builders that I worked with. And Hardie has its own story. That was hard too, because I was trying to win the market back. Most of the market had gone to our competitor at the time, and so it was again that figure it out factor, like you mentioned, and that really being able to be rejected, said no to over and over and over again, but figuring out, what can I do that's more than just sales? How can I be more to other people? How can I help them? How can I help them succeed and grow and use my resources and connection to bring something good to them? That's kind of what I learned at Hardie, and that really helped with founding WINC. And so, should I talk about?
Yeah. Well, I think let's go. Let's go over to Leah and have her give her backstory, and then we'll switch back and talk about how you guys first met and kind of the inspiration behind WINC.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I grew up always interested in interior design and architecture. It was actually really fostered by my dad, who is a retired civil engineer, and he would take me for rides around town and show me different creative intersection designs and talk about the projects that he was working on, the road construction projects, and what I was really interested in were all the details behind it. The stories that he had to tell about the budgets and what didn't go right and how did he fix it, and those are kind of some of the things that really interested me about it. And I realized in college that I wanted to really make an impact on the world, and I thought that the best way to do that would be through interior design. So I went to the University of Wisconsin-Stout for interior design, and I really enjoyed it. I met my husband Matt there, and his background is his dad had started a custom cabinet shop in the 70s, and he was interested in taking over the business, but not because he loves cabinet making, but because he's totally into the business side of things. And so he was really trying to learn all about that. And so I graduated from college, and I started working for an interior design firm that did primarily restaurants and retail spaces. And I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I got to the point where I couldn't really go any further at that firm, and I was thinking about what I should do next, and Matt came to me one day and he said, you should come and work for us. You could make some improvements. And I was like, yeah, I could give it a shot, and taking over the family business was not anything that I had considered up until that point, so it was really kind of like, okay, I'll give this a shot. And then I started to realize, well, I can't just go into this half-assed, I have to really put myself into it all in. And so that's what we did. It was 2007, of course, a great time to be putting all your eggs in one basket at a company. But so the two of us were working there, and then the recession hit. And so my father-in-law was still running the company at that time. I was still learning, and Matt was working there. And all three of us, at the same place during the recession. But we got creative, and we took on a lot of interesting projects during that time to stay afloat, because we didn't want to have to let people go, or our accountant told us to shut the business down. But
wow. How big was your team in total?
I think we had 5 or 6 people during the recession. And it was interesting. We had the opportunity to work on a really cool project in a penthouse in Minneapolis. Someone came to us looking for some serpentine-shaped cabinets. And this is something that it really challenged us, and it was really exciting. And that's the kind of thing that we thrive on. Whereas my father-in-law was kind of like, oh, I don't know if we can do this, and we're like, no, we can do it. But
the team was all fired up because it was something new and unique.
And we knew that we could do it. We knew that we could figure out how to make it work and do it within budget, within timeline, and, this would be this really cool project. And so that we did that, and we just hit it out of the park, and we loved it. And that was where I think we sort of started stepping away from kind of the builder cabinets that my father-in-law provided, which were great quality, and he provided what builders needed, and to something a little bit more custom, a little bit more fun, really.
And that probably would have been before CAD drawings too, and CNC machines as well.
No,
were you doing all that by hand, or was that?
No, actually, both Matt and I learned AutoCAD in school.
Oh, okay.
And so we both knew how to do that, and we were communicating to we've had a CNC machine. I mean, my father-in-law might have been old school, but he was a pretty forward thinker.
Okay.
And so he had a CNC for years before we even were.
I was just thinking of the serpentine, there's the arches and stuff, and I'm sure you could do it manually, but obviously with a CNC machine, you can almost do anything now.
Yeah, it was a lot easier with that technology for sure. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's what we call ourselves, as a technology company that just happens to make cabinets. We obviously are super into craftsmanship and that kind of thing, but we like to use the technology to really further our business and make it work for us.
That's great. Well, let's transition into the WINC portion. Mm-hmm. And again, for those that are from around here at Minnesota, it's Women in Construction. But I guess, what struck me in just kind of preparing for this and reading on the website, and just even what you wrote in your bio, Masha, was just, walk us through, obviously being a man, growing up in building and kind of seeing a very male-dominated industry. It's kind of interesting. And I very much want more women in construction for a variety of reasons. One is I have a daughter. Two, my mom was an interior designer, and I just have always been surrounded. But think about it, like all of the decisions made in a home are predominantly made by women. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of ironic that you have a bunch of men in an industry that is dominated, that our dominant client class is women. It's very ironic. But of anyone who, you left, let's call it stinky, smelly truck drivers. You've actually, Cambria, we'll take that aside because I'm sure there's more women there than it was in truck driving, would be my guess. Yeah. Then you went to a siding company, and now at Welch you're going to have a better bit. But you've always been around. It seems like you're getting up the rank of maybe less, hairy flannel, all the stereotypes that surround building, which is definitely not true. But I mean, obviously, you have been in a very male-dominated industry your entire career, all the different steps.
Right.
Tell us about your experience of going to these groups. I feel like that was very informative to why you started WINC. Not everyone has your dynamic, fearless communication personality. When did you realize that you could be sort of a lightning rod in both of you? Walk us through your each unique experience of being sort of on an island and wanting more women in the room with you, and how you guys formed it together, and we'll kind of go that way into WINC here.
Absolutely. So the building industry here in Minnesota, not sure about anywhere else, but here it's a very relationship-driven industry, and your relationships matter. It's, they say it's who you know, not what you know, but it's also like, the closeness with who you know and how you treat the people you know, and those relationships really do matter. And I felt like, because back then it was so male-oriented, I don't mind the stinky, smelly part, that's fine, but just the relationships I felt that I was making were lacking, like genuine friendship, just because of, I am a woman, and at that time I was maybe engaged to my husband and then married, and I maybe can't have that closeness that a man can have with, a male client or male customer. So I would see like my male coworkers or my competitors taking their builders out hunting, fishing, golfing, all these trips, and not saying women can't do that, but that wasn't my forte. I wasn't going to go rent a cabin with 10 men for a weekend, hunting or fishing. I just couldn't do that. I was never going to achieve that closeness and those real genuine connections and friendships. And so I thought, gosh, like I know there are women in this industry. They just seem to be behind the scenes. Where are they? And how can I really build those connections? And so, at around, and I would go, Leah has this story about the back then, now it's Housing First, back then it was the Builders Association, and feeling like you're walking into a room and like, gosh, like, who can I talk to? Like, I'm really out of place here. And so at that same time, Hardy had started a women's networking group for women in sales at Hardy. Like, they just out of the blue started it, and they'd invited us all on a trip to Asheville, North Carolina, and to like go bond, learn some stuff. We had some speakers, but also like go out and do some stuff together and bond. And it changed us. All of us. It just 3 days. And we felt so connected to Hardy.
How big was the group?
I mean, maybe it would have been like 30, 40 people. It wasn't big. And none of us knew each other because we were all in different markets all over the country. But after that trip, I mean, we were like re-energized, reinvigorated. We were like, rah, rah, hardy, we're ready to go. And it was just because of those connections, because all of a sudden now we weren't alone on a boat. We had each other and we had deep and meaningful conversations and we could really connect. And so thought, gosh, if only there was a women's group like that here, so I could build those relationships. And I even had asked my boss at the time. I like dreamt up this name. I was only focused on new construction at the time, so I was like, it could be called Women in New Construction. It could be WINC. How cute is that? And I asked my boss at the time, Scott Hager, who is a wonderful guy. I was like, what if I did something like this? And he's like, you have my blessing. But you know, I'm someone I always like dream of big ideas and have these ideas, but like I need like partner. I need someone who like can like say, yes, let's do it. And this is how we're going to do it and keep me on task. So anyway, this was all in my head at this point. And then let's go to Leah.
Yeah. So right around that time, that was 2016. And my husband and I had taken over the business. We were officially running it without my father-in-law around. And we were having to bring on our own builder clients because my father-in-law's builder clients were starting to age out. And so I basically started, like Masha, going to every industry event that I could, just get our name out there, getting out there and just doing whatever I could. And I remember one night I was working late with a customer in the showroom and closed up and went to this industry event. And I walked in, and I've been in the industry for about 10 years at that point. And I walk in and I see just this wall of suits. And it's all these men, and they all are good, good old boys, and they're, all know each other. And it was just these closed groups, and I just felt so out of place. And I've never felt like that before. And ever since I, was young, I always felt like I could do anything that I wanted. And my family fostered that as well. It was just like, oh, there's no men do this and women do this. It's just everybody can do everything. And because I'm more on the customer facing side, and the customers are mostly women that are making these decisions, I just didn't even think about it, So then here I am in this group, and I just felt like a fish out of water. And by that time, Masha and I knew each other because she worked for Cambria, and she was coming in and selling Cambria countertops for me and with me. And she and I would meet for lunch and coffee dates and bounce builder leads off of each other. And so I had a lunch date with her the following week, and I was still feeling just kind of frustrated and out of place about this. And I sat down and I said, Masha, I just had the worst experience at an event last night, or maybe it was the week before. I told her about it, and she looked at me and she said, let's start a women's group. And I said, okay, let's do it. So that was really how WINC started.
She had just been waiting for you. She'd been waiting for her like, Robin. Batman needed Robin.
True. Yeah. It was like a divine appointment. I mean, it really couldn't have gone any better than that because I need, I'm definitely like in the details, in the weeds kind of person, and and I need someone like Masha who's going to have the idea and have the contacts and get us out there.
So what year was this?
So this was it
2016?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, if you go to your website, which is very polished and it's so well thought out, and we can
Greta Wittenberg.
All right, Greta, way to go. It's pretty impressive. We'll maybe talk about that in a little bit, just because I have some questions about what it has become. I just find that, I think a lot of people, and myself included, nothing quite as noble as, Women in Construction Group, but as anyone that tries to get people galvanized together, whether it's sharing about business or sharing about common things that you agree on. Like, there's the initial phase, but then for it to have any sort of lasting stamina and lasting effect, like, it takes a lot of not only willpower, but you need a lot of people. It needs to be, the message has to be right, number one. You have to have the right number of people associated with it. And you guys, especially with what, it's easy to look at it, what it is now, but I'm kind of curious to see what it was when it first, like those early evolution years. And just for, respecting time, because I want to get into what it is now, walk us through those early years of how you sort of organize it. Like, where did you go after you said, let's do it? Like, what was next? Like, what did you do? And what did those first couple of years look like?
Well, our first meeting was at the Minneapolis Women's Club. Joy Martin of Joy Martin Architecture, she was a member there, and so she offered the space to us. And we basically just reached out to all of our contacts who were women.
And I think that was like 30 people, all of our contacts of women. 30
that were in
people.
construction, though, specifically?
I think maybe 30 showed up.
No, I think it was like on my email list because we didn't know that many at the time because like you said, it was just, they were kind of few and far between.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that first meeting was really just a lunch and Hardy paid for it, right?
Yeah.
And
that's really cool.
We talked, we met, we ate lunch, and then we sent what is it? We asked them, like, what do you want to see in a women's group?
Yeah.
We haven't filled out a survey.
But I think we were just so surprised. I think it was like 23-ish people who showed up. Yep. But like why? Like I think we were like, oh my gosh, like all 23 of you wanted to come to this? Like this is like this random thing.
You were sort of blown away that many people showed up.
Exactly. I was so floored and how fun it was and how like natural it felt for everyone to be there. And then I think like Alana Wynn, who's now with All Inc. and we love her and she was our first vice president. She said, well, you guys really, if you want to do this, you guys really should start a board. And we were like, okay, like how do you start a board? Like, and so she was like, this is how we do it. And we kind of emailed everyone, said, hey, we need some women to volunteer to be on the board. And I think at first there were 7 of us, and then it went down to 5 of us who really started the board, and we would meet monthly and just like plan these events. And like now we're more official. Now we have 8 of us, but that's how it kind of started. And it was just interesting from the beginning. And Leah will talk a little bit about why we don't charge dues. But from the beginning, we knew we don't want to charge dues. We want to be different. And so the only way we can get away with not charging dues but having programming is if we ask the vendors in the market to host. And it's a really great thing for them because then they get, maybe at that time it was like 40 to 50 women who show up every month. But then now it's like anywhere between 60 to 100 women who show up at their showroom and learn about this business, and it really elevates our vendors. But right away, these vendors would volunteer. They'd say, yeah, I want to host, and the list began, and women started showing up, and we'd just email every month, hey, the next event is at this time, and people would show up, and we were like, wow, we've really got something here.
Yeah, I'll say, I mean, you had a huge community, essentially. You tapped into a community spirit, right? And you were basically the lightning rod of what you were feeling, and you're saying, hey, anyone that feels this way, come join us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we really saw that women were doing some really amazing things in these different companies within the industry, and we were on these islands, and we weren't able to communicate with each other about it in any real way. And so that was what WINC was really supposed to do, is just bring us all together where we feel comfortable. We're all on a level playing field, and we can socialize and network and inspire each other.
And I mean, one of the things on your website was just doing these different points. You had, support networks, you have some philanthropic part that we'll talk about, you have some mentoring, and then of course the sharing of strengths, talents, and experience. I mean, just that community pool that, in some ways it's like unofficial, official counseling / business coaching / therapy / I mean, I assume, I don't know this, correct me if I'm wrong, but based on the head nods I'm getting, because you're having a community that's like, I'm dealing with this. Does anyone have a good solution? And now they become your people. Yeah. And now all of a sudden this people becomes a huge galvanic force that can sort of help each other and lift up the entire industry.
Mm-hmm. Well, and when you have a bunch of women together all working for the good of something, like let's say our building industry, there's a natural trust that forms, and you feel comfortable enough to share. So like you said, the therapy that happens, I think that's so true. I mean, you just start sharing and you have deep conversations that are very natural. You don't have to ask for those conversations. Yeah. They just happen, and those relationships form, and then you just start helping each other. And as you help each other, the whole industry, gets
100%. Well. And I love, and I'm going to repeat what you shared here in your little bio that you sent me. And I think this is really important because I think a lot of people would look at, I'm curious to hear what kind of backlash you have any people that have a negative connotation towards WINC. And where I would challenge that premise is where it says your mission at WINC is not about demoting men, but raising people up. And I think that's important for people to remember, regardless of what platform or what thing that they're doing, or if you yourself feels threatened by something, ask yourself the question first, is the group, whatever it is, in this case it's WINC, but let's pick some unknown group that I'm even thinking about. I think it's good for myself to think about. Like I'm thinking like, what can I use about this to help me as a lens look at other things? And it's like, is this group trying to push somebody down? And we live in a very polarizing world with all kinds of, interesting topics out there, right? But I think maybe a big thing is like, are you trying to push other people down, or are you just trying to bring people up? And I think you hit the core of it for me. I love what you've kind of said very succinctly, that if you're raising people up, how can and if you don't agree with that, then you are the person pushing somebody down. Right. I think that's a good thing to look in the mirror and ask yourself. But with that question, did you guys face much resistance in the market, or do you face much resistance?
Not at all.
No. And I think like how you said and how you wrote, it's not about demoting men at all. We know we work with men all day, every day. We know how important everyone is to this market and to this industry. It's just about having kind of that, just a little bit of a different network where you feel a little more comfortable to be yourself and kind of like sharing, maybe inner thoughts or personal feelings or whatever. But again, we are just as much as a partner to the men in the industry as well. And we love them and respect them as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I love it. I mean, now obviously when you have like a parade home and, now you guys are up to, how many total members do you have now?
Oh, shoot, I should have looked that up.
I know. Well, so our email list is like 800 people and growing, but for events, so we have monthly events and usually, anywhere between 60 to 100 women, sometimes a little more if the showroom can hold more people. Our artisan bus tour, so Wheelin' with WINC, we do it for the artisan tour. So it's a bus tour we do for the artisan homes, and we are now debating now we have 2 buses going, so that's 100 women, but we're debating adding a third maybe for the fall tour. That would be 150 women. So every month we do have a big group that shows up.
It's pretty impressive. Yeah. I mean, I've been at the parade and actually, for whatever reason, mine has always geographically, I guess this last one, I finally was able to make the WINC bus because the previous year we were too far out, and I know you guys are doing your map and trying to hit as many as possible, but man, you guys pull up on the bus, and especially if people aren't in the industry or don't know about WINC, I love watching people's faces, and they're just like, there's 100 people coming up the steps like right now. Like when you come, you're coming in force, and it's amazing to see because obviously so many of them are industry insiders, people, designers and people we work with like yourselves, and we love seeing that kind of interest in our homes and in the community and the tour at large. There's a huge support to just the community of builders and obviously construction as a whole.
Well, and that's a really fun story too. What year was it that we toured before we had the WINC bus tour? It was maybe 2018, I think. And we decided to go hit the artisan home tour as a small group. So there were 4 of us, I think, and we all were from different parts of the industry. So Masha was in siding, someone else was doing window coverings, I do cabinets, and I can't remember who the 4th person was, maybe wallpaper or something like that. But we went through these houses, and it was so fun to hear everyone's opinions or everyone's comments on, pointing out cool details. Masha would point out siding details that I would never have looked at. And it was so neat to be able to see that and to see it from someone else's perspective. And so that year we said, next year we should do this with a group. And that's really how the bus tour came about, is we got a bus going the next year, and then the next year after that, and then we did 2 buses, and now maybe 3.
It's like a Super Bowl. It's like the Super Bowl party coming into town.
It is. That bus tour sells out within like 3 hours. So if you are here, a woman in WINC in the Twin Cities, look for that email. It should be coming out in the next month-ish or so, and get on it because it sells out quick.
This episode is brought to you by Pella Northland. For 19.5 years, I've been building homes, and 95% of all of my homes have used Pella windows. I couldn't be happier to call them a partner in our builds and our remodels. Whether you're an architect, a designer, or a remodeler, I'd highly recommend Pella windows. They can fit old homes, new homes, reclaimed, commercial, and really everything in between. Pella is a company that we trust and that we recommend to our clients. Additionally, in management, Peter and Ed have just been absolute fantastic people to work with, as well as mentors to me personally. So when it comes time to look for a window, I'd highly recommend Pella Windows. Find more at PellaNorthland.com. Also, if you're interested, you can hear episode 1 where I interview Peter and Ed together for a great listen on business and Pella Windows. This episode is brought to you by Adaptive, the software for builders that automates draws, budgets, and bookkeeping with AI. For over a year now, I've been partnered with Adaptive, and they've just been an amazing game changer in terms of efficiency in our time and all our bookkeeping. From the time we get an invoice, we import it into their system. The AI codes it, cost codes it, job codes it. All we have to do is review it, pass it through the people internally in the office, all digitally, and then it gets approved and paid all via ACH. It's becoming extremely fast and saving us countless hours a day and a week. When it comes to draws, all of our budgets now are set in Adaptive as well. So now when we cost code against the draws, we can do our change orders, and then with a click of a button, we can submit these draws to our title companies or to our homeowners for faster payment. If you're looking to save time, and if you're looking to be accurate, I highly recommend Adaptive. Additionally, if you'd like to listen to one of their founders share the story of Adaptive, you can listen to episode number 15 on the Curious Builder podcast. Let's do a quick shout out to the board. I think there's 8 on it now.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk a little bit about the orchestration of, it's kind of cool that right when you started, Alana recommended you have a board. So it's like you had a board before you had members, which is pretty powerful because I'm guessing that the shape and the organization that we see now is in large part based on Alana's advice of having a board help shape it from day one. Is that true?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then Leah really drove us to become an official 501c6, so an official nonprofit, industry nonprofit. And so we wanted to make sure the board was really official and operated correctly and voted correctly. And we did everything right and fair. So because at first we just really went along with, we were on
just going with the flow,
flying by the seat of our pants a little bit.
Exactly. But now, so now we have Kristen, who's our VP, Kristen Reinitz. She's with Admit One, and I just want to say something wonderful about each person on the board because I'm in awe of every single person. I cannot believe how dedicated every single woman is, and we're all volunteers, so no one gets paid to be on this board, and the amount of passion and heart and true caring that goes into
and time
that goes into all this. So Kristen, she's with Admit One. She's our VP. She's amazing. And she also heads up our philanthropy part of what we do. And Alana kind of spearheaded that, and Kristen's taken it over. And we can talk about that too. But she's an amazing, kind person and friend. And then we have Janelle Matson, who's our secretary. And if you need a designer, a GC, a PM, Janelle, a realtor. Janelle's phenomenal.
So she's your connector.
She is an amazing connector. She is a jack of all trades. She was actually the designer in my own home. And I couldn't recommend her enough. I always say that. Then we've got Leah, our treasurer. And Leah, if you need cabinets, Northland Woodworks. But Leah's phenomenal, and she keeps us on track, and she's very organized and very dedicated. And we're so lucky to have Leah. And then we have Heather Griffiths, who's also with Admit One. And Heather is our events coordinator. So she sends out all of the events emails. You
said that was Heather?
That's Heather. Mm-hmm. Heather, thank God for Heather. Heather does so much all day, every day. Keeps us on track, keeps all these registrations on track, back and forth with all of our members. So
the thing I'll say about events, and we'll do a shout out to Heather, I'm going to have coffee with her. When I started the Curious Builder podcast, I decided to do some live events, as you know. Mm-hmm. And so we've done one with Welch and with you. And the amount of work and time, as you mentioned, Leah, that goes into creating an event, hats off. People that are in the event space, you are underappreciated. And, the amount of effort that goes into it is a lot. It's easy to just show up and be present and, from sponsors to coordinating. And I'm not saying that one of the things is that difficult. It's just that it takes so much time.
It really does, yeah.
And perseverance. I mean, because it's the thing that, I don't know if you found this, and maybe this should have Heather on just talk about events, but one of the issues that I find with events is that people don't plan very well. And people tend to, you don't actually know how many people are going to show up till the week of. And it's maddening to order food, to line up stuff. And if you're spending money to create an event, it's obviously you guys have done it pretty well. If you're getting the showroom space, I'm guessing you're getting that at no cost, which keeps the overhead down, and it's a win-win, as you've already said. But it's also just respectful. It's a little bit like in being, us fellow communicators, Masha, one of my pet peeves is when people don't communicate. I'm fine with a yes or a no. It's the maybe that really bothers me.
I think there's a little bit of a FOMO when people get the WINC email. We sell it pretty quick, usually. And so that tends to be because people know that if they don't RSVP, they might not get a spot. So that happens pretty quickly. But one other thing that happens is each one of us quarterbacks each event. So, Heather is definitely the coordinator of the events, But then each one of the board members kind of heads off contacting the showroom, making sure to get the logos, doing all the detail work to make sure that Heather's not doing it all, because it would be way too much. It is way too much for one person.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps too. I mean, if your list is 800 and you're getting between 60 to 100, that's 1 in 8 have to be available. But the other side of it is you're doing an event once a month, which is a lot. That's a big pull. It's funny because oddly enough, when we did our last Curious Builder, it happened to be the same night that you were having, and it was like, because we do pull a pretty large crowd of, of ladies to our events. And it's like, a good portion of them are like, nope, we're at a WINC event that night. It's like, that would have been nice to know. I wish someone on the Welch team could have hinted to me about that date.
Well, I think there was... Right. It was something we were like in between dates, and then by the time we landed on one, it was like too late.
Dates, and you just go with what you go.
Exactly. There's so few dates to go around, it seems like, and I was so torn. It was really hard.
I'm just impressed you guys had to do one a month. I mean, that's no joke.
So really, the moral of the story is you need to hire a Heather.
Yes. So, Oh, I'm hiring Heather now. Forget nonprofit, Heather. You come over here, I'll pay you.
Right. And then I'll just tell the last ladies, just so everyone gets a shout out. Greta Wittenberg with Creative Endeavor. Diane on your last podcast shouted her out. She manages our website. She did your website.
Your websites are beautiful. Yeah. I mean, shout out to her. I haven't met her, but Diane's website was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And your website, I just looked at briefly, and it was like, wow, your imagery, and I mean, wow.
She basically, I had an idea, and I knew how it wanted to look, I knew how I wanted it to look, but I really didn't know how to get it there. And she did it. And then she also wrote a lot of the copy for it, because it's not something that I have a harder time writing about myself. And so she wrote it, and I'm a good editor, so I was able to edit that. But it was awesome, front to back.
And so to have like a website designer, graphics person who understands all of this kind of stuff on our board, I mean, holy moly, we lucked out with that for sure. And then we've got Diane Mullis, which by the time you're listening to this podcast, if you haven't heard Diane's with Pro Concrete Countertops, please listen. It's a really great one, and Diane's phenomenal. And she is so good at what she does, and so creative, and so smart and talented. And then we've got Emily Youngs with Dakota County Lumber is our newest board member. And I know we were maybe going to talk about sponsorship.
Let's talk about it now.
Yeah, we've had this idea for so long. We need to create a sponsorship program. How do we do it? We kept going back and forth. We brought Emily on and boom, she created it. So we're really lucky to have her. But yeah, sponsorship. Yeah,
let's talk a little bit about that. So both, if someone wants to sponsor, I was looking at it because obviously this show can't exist without sponsors, and huge shout out to them. They can be found on our sponsor page on the Curious Builder podcast. For you, all your sponsors are listed, down below, on your website. How do you A, attract them? B, what kind of tiers of sponsorships, and what do they get in return? I've one thing, it's always like when I've learned a lot, in the last 2 years about, asking. It's a little bit different. The only way, mine is a for-profit business, where yours is a nonprofit. I guess I'd like to talk about that maybe after we talk about sponsors. But what has been your approach with sponsors? Because I have to imagine a lot of people actually want to sponsor. How do you tier, and what is your deliverables, to them?
Do you want to take this one, or should I take this one?
You can go ahead.
Well, this is hard because we have it all in a list, but since it's not in front of me,
that's fair.
It's hard to
say
remember.
High level.
But basically, to create a sponsorship program, we had to do exactly how you just mentioned. Figure out, what do these sponsors get in return? And I think we were had all of our wheels kind of spinning on what really could we give them back in return? What is actually of value to them? And that's what Emily helped with a lot, because Emily with Dakota County Lumber, she was coming at it from the vendor's side of and they had sponsored our Wheeling with WINC tour many, many times. So she kind of knew exactly hey, this is what we would like to see from you guys. And she was very transparent about that. And we sat down with Sunny Bowman as well of Dakota County Lumber, and they were like, if we're going to keep sponsoring you guys, this is what we want to see. And that kind of helped start that conversation, because...
And what were some of those things?
Yeah, so it was we want to be on all of your emails that go out. We want to be on your website. We want to be on your social media. at our events, the one thing we started doing, we have a banner of our sponsors, and they're different levels at our events. So, obviously the top level sponsors get their names much bigger, and then it kind of goes down from there. And we also wanted, just like we don't charge dues to our members, we wanted to make those sponsorships affordable, especially because we're just kind of getting into that sponsorship program now. We can always go higher later, and as WINC grows, we can go higher. But right now we were like, what's doable for these businesses? So many of these businesses have to sponsor so many things already. So how do we make it feasible for them? What are the different levels? And how do we actually make promises that we can keep? And so that's really what we've been working on. And I think it's been going really well. And it just helped having someone who kind of understood it to lay it out for us and have that transparent conversation of
Well, I would imagine with 800 members, there's probably a fair amount of people on the inside that you could even ask, what are some things that we could tier, for deliverables?
Yeah.
I can only speak from my own experience about what things, sometimes a sponsor doesn't even know what they want, or they don't even know what you can offer.
Yeah.
And so I assume with the showrooms, just saying hey, we can get hundreds of people to show up, that's pretty powerful, because, a lot of times showrooms, especially, I think right now post-pandemic, people are pretty excited to go back and meet with people. But I have to imagine too, I, for instance, as a builder, I get called on all the time, to go to showrooms. And I usually will tell the person calling on me, it's not that I don't want to go. And I'll look at it more so on the Curious Builder platform, is this a place I could host or something like that? But as a builder, most of them tend to be the pretty showrooms, right? It's the showrooms where, they want my clients to come and select stuff. But honestly, most of my clients are women, and they're not asking me for my opinion to pick out their stuff. It's the interior design group. And so I usually tell the people that are calling me, if you get my designers in there, I'll give you their names and numbers of, the top designers that I use. And if you can get them in, because they're the ones that, early on in my career, yes, I used to go to all the showrooms with my clients, kind of just like a chauffeur, I guess. I do have an opinion, but not that anyone really wants to hear it. Nobody cares. And so anyway, I guess that my point in that is you are delivering a very valuable service, because I think as a company owner looking at, how much money do we spend in our showroom? It's always nice to have a showroom, but are people actually using it? And so anyway, every company has their own business philosophy on that, but
yeah, so now we have annual sponsorships, and then we also have
events.
Yeah, event sponsorships. And then for our Wheelin' with WINC events, we have events for just that bus tour. Sponsors for just that bus tour. And one of the things we're doing this year is we're going to have logos on the sides of the buses.
Nice.
So when we're going through town, people can see who we are. And when we pull up, you see who we are.
I think the Curious Builder might have to be a sponsor.
That would be cool.
Amazing.
That'd be kind of fun.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that after.
Yeah, that'd be great. But it kind of to your point of showrooms and why they're so important. As a vendor, we always say, our best tool is our showroom. If I can get someone into my showroom, then I have so much more likely of a chance to do business with them. I can take you out to coffee and tell you a million things about my business, but until you see it, you see the people within my business, you see the process, you see what we can actually deliver, you're not really going to be
One of the things that I really identified in your messaging on your website and just what you're telling me is, people, we obviously love connection and we love the camaraderie of knowing that we're not alone. And that's super important. But we also want to learn and kind of level up, I keep saying. And education's a big thing. That was one of your main points. But what I liked about that was, in addition to learning and always having something of value, I sort of Masha, you had mentioned that, you kind of like to buck some of the social norms. And I just want to share this because maybe you won't. And I love this. But you had mentioned when you were back in high school that when you were on the high school team, you saw that. That was Leah.
Me,
I'm sorry, this was Leah.
No,
and you were on the high school team. Why don't you tell the story then in your own words? Because this is an amazing story.
So I learned golf in high school, and I was floored that there was a women's tee. I couldn't even believe it. I was like, why am I going to shoot from this tee that's behind everybody else? Why wouldn't I start at the same place where everyone else is starting so I can get better? And I can just continue to get better. And so that's exactly how I've always felt, is that don't give me a handicap before I've already started.
I love that mentality. I mean, I feel like that is a super key element to any one who owns a business? Because, I assume obviously we're talking about, in this case, a sexist thing or, between a man and a woman or the handicap thing. But I love that you identified that at such an early age that let me try. And I think about even as a parent, sometimes as a parent, I have little kids. And so sometimes actually just last night, Tate, my little guy, wanted to ride a bike. And, sometimes they can do things that they don't know that they can do. And I believe that our place as a parent is to help provide a safe environment for them to realize what they can and can't do without being harmed to a certain degree. Sometimes getting hurt is kind of okay. Sometimes you got to fall off the bike before you realize how to balance, right? But they want to be, in a safe environment. I guess I'm only bringing that up now because, if you are limiting somebody's potential for a wrong reason, like if you're limiting it because you think they're going to get hurt, that's a different conversation. But if you're just limiting it arbitrarily, I just love what you said. I can't really articulate how much I resonate with what you just said.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, forget the sex here, men or women, I feel like as humans, we do this all the time. Mm-hmm. All the time. People are held down all the time, whether you're a business owner, an athlete, it doesn't matter what you are. I feel like, reality is perception. And one of the things I loved about you guys even meeting is, Masha basically finishing your sentence you're like, I feel like, let's start a women's group. You're like, okay, let's do this. I mean, that, willpower is very underrated. Mm-hmm. And not that you don't need a plan. Sometimes a plan is helpful. But if I had to choose between extreme willpower and a great plan, I think I'd probably pick extreme willpower.
Yeah.
Would you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, sometimes the plan bogs you down. It kind of instills that little fear of failure in you. So you might as well just go, and the plan could...
Yeah, or you stop because you feel like you have to have every single thing perfect before you start. And if you do it that way, you're just going to fail.
Yep.
Because you'll never start.
So out of curiosity, did you stay hitting at the men's team? At the men's tee? How did you handle that?
I did. Yes, I did. And actually... I did a golf event with the industry, and I was going to shoot from the men's tee because I was on a team of men. And they said, no, our chances are better as a team if you go shoot up there. And I said, fine, I'll do it this time.
Only for the good of the team.
Just for the team.
I mean,
I ended up getting longest putt on that one.
Oh, heck yeah.
I won an award for that.
That's awesome. I didn't know you were a golfer. That's really cool.
I love that story. Well, that's great. Well, back to WINC. I guess this is all part of WINC. Let's talk a little bit about, why did you just decide to be a nonprofit versus a for-profit? Because looking at it, I mean, the organization, I mean, the board, I mean, this has all the makings of a robust business. And obviously, and this is my own ignorance, we had Mark Ostrom on from the Joy Collaborative, who's an amazing human being. Yeah. And we did talk a little bit about the differences between, a nonprofit and a profit, which I should probably go back and re-listen to my own interview. But I guess, why did you decide to do a nonprofit versus profit? And just because you are a nonprofit, I mean, obviously you have sponsors, you have needs, I assume there are things you have to pay for. Yeah. Walk us through that decision and sort of looking back, would you make the same decision?
Well, part of it, I think, is that we wanted to really set ourselves apart from other groups in the industry. And we wanted to make it more, like I said previously, on a level playing field. We wanted people to come in and feel comfortable, not knowing that we're not just trying to take their money. We're here as honestly part of an organization that just wants to connect other people. And we also wanted to assist other nonprofits. So philanthropy was something that from day one, I don't really know where it came from, but we just right away we said, yeah, we want to do things like we want to help other organizations in our community. We want to be supportive of other nonprofits or nonprofits in the industry. So, and outside the industry too. So that was something that we just right away knew that we wanted to make it a nonprofit, I guess.
Well, I think also we know that there's so many small businesses that are part of this industry, like let's say small designers or small businesses that are already paying so many dues to other associations. So whether it's, Housing First or NARI or ASID or NKBA or all of the above, or like Lelch, we're part of the commercial industry as well. So we've got all these organizations in the commercial industry to pay dues for too. So we knew it would get really expensive and really hard for people that have these small businesses or maybe are, entrepreneurs to be able to take on one more. So we were like, that's why we said, let's not charge dues and let's be a nonprofit, because we wanted to be accessible for all women in the industry. We didn't want women in the industry to have to pick and choose. Well, I can only be part of WINC, or I can only be part of Housing First. I don't know what I'm going to do. I want to say, hey, just be part of WINC and show up when you can.
Yeah, we really didn't want checkbook members. We didn't want people who, bigger companies that just write checks out and maybe somebody comes and shows up to events. We wanted people to be really involved. And we felt the only way to do that would be to either not charge for any events or just charge a very small fee for events so that people can choose which ones they go to, and it's not going to break the bank. They've got tons of other things that they're paying for.
It's super interesting philosophy, because I agree with what you're saying, but yet I could try to think about like the opposite too, because I'm like, if you also have a barrier of entry of some investment, people then are also more likely to show up because they paid for it and they value it. I think a little bit like, somebody at a New Year's resolution is like, I want to run a 7-minute mile. And let's just say for this example, they're running 10 minutes. If they do it on their own, they often don't make it. Yeah. If you have a community, which you're very likely to make it, or if you hire a coach, you are paying. And so by virtue of you paying for this trainer, you will show up. I think what you've established so well in this analogy, I guess, is that you've formed a community that has galvanized everyone. And so people want to be a part of it. And so I think that's very noble and obviously extremely,
It's funny that you bring that up, though, about when we did have free events at the beginning and people wouldn't show up after RSVPing. And that happened quite a bit. And so we realized we did have to charge a small amount.
I mean, it's like $25, right?
Yeah.
It's not much. And so, but people then are more committed to coming.
See, that's what I found with it. I struggled with that early on. Mosh and I talked a little bit about this when we were setting our, I'm very new. I think I've only had 4 events. We have one coming up Thursday.
Your events are awesome, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, they're
I mean, I like to, and this isn't about me. Well, you guys can read some other time.
But go to Mark's events.
Thank you. I mean, I want it to be educational. I never want someone to show up and feel like that wasn't worth it. Like that is not, if anyone says that, then, I should probably put actually that'd be a great sales line. If you didn't feel like it was worth it, your money back. I mean, I don't know if it's like, I think they must clearly do this because not enough people return stuff, except my wife. The amount of stuff that shows up at my doorstep that we return is just mind boggling, but that's just me. But anyway, going back to this is like, you want to deliver on people's expectations. Yeah. For me anyway, there's a form of entertainment. Like if I'm going to go somewhere, like I want to be entertained too. Yeah. And I think when you have a cool community, I mean, it's also a nice touch point. Like, hey, once a month I get to see, not every single person's going to be the best friends, but it is nice to see people on a regular basis. I guarantee there's a lot of friendships that have probably come out of WINC, right? That exists outside of your monthly meetings.
Yeah. Well, and then like Leah said, after a while, our events really proved themselves. Like we proved ourselves. Our events became really fun and really good and worth it. And so not only do people show up because they pay $25, it's worth it as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you said.
It's not just because they paid, for sure.
Yeah.
Not.
Yeah.
No, it's just a bit of an accountability, and it puts
a
little gas in the gas tank so that it can keep moving on. And
Absolutely. And the fun part, I mean, it's really each showroom comes to us and they have ideas for what they want to do. At the beginning, we were like, we should have a list of ideas for suggestions for when, someone needs an idea. We've never had to use the list. We're actually kind of disappointed because we have this list of really cool ideas.
Right, send me the list. I'll use it. I'll buy the list. That'll be like a sponsorship. Be like, you can buy our list of great ideas. See, you could monetize some of these. Yeah. You got an 800-person think tank.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is the showroom shimmy plug? I want to hear about the showroom shimmy.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about this.
Yeah. So back to uplifting our vendors. So I think do you want to talk about what? Oh, sorry. Gotta move closer. Do you want to talk about a little bit how we're different in the way that we uplift our vendors, and then that can go straight into showroom shimmy? And then I can take the showroom shimmy, or do you want me to just
go ahead?
Okay, cool. So the building or industry here in the Twin Cities, it's really tailored to uplifting builders and the remodelers and the designers. And that's really amazing. And obviously, we all want to do business with all of you guys. And it makes our industry what it is. But they're also really amazing vendors in this industry. And we make up so much of the home, right? Where are all the products in the home and all the services within the home and the subcontractors. And we found that they weren't really being focused on as much. So there's so many different home tours, which is the best and the coolest, and we all go to them and love them. But what about a showroom tour? Like, how do we get the industry to go celebrate these showrooms? So we did it last year, and we had to rethink some things because we made it kind of like the whole month of July, and we had like 43 showrooms that registered. But when you make something all open all month, it's hard from a staffing, standpoint, and from a, July gets busy, and if something's open all month, are people really going to get around to going to it? So we rethought it this year, and we're super excited about it. So Greta put it best, but she said, why do you go to a WINC event? You go to a WINC event because you know your friends will be there. You're going to learn something fun, do something fun. Yep. You're going to network. You're going to get something out of it. So she said, why don't we make it 4 events per Wednesday per July? So 16 events in July, and that will be the showroom shimmy. And it's just 2 hours per showroom. And we're going to make it like a lottery. The showrooms submit their ideas. There's going to be something fun and unique at each showroom. And my idea was, let's open it up to the whole industry, not just WINC members, not just women. Let's get builders. Let's get architects. Let's get designers. Let's get everyone who's not even in WINC, but who's part of the industry. So the showrooms are going to invite their whole network, and we're going to, as WINC, going to invite the whole building industry network. And let's all of us join in to celebrate these vendors and these showrooms. So
give me an example of like a vendor.
Yeah. So, any of us, Northland.
Yeah. So Northland Woodworks
could
host an event.
Yeah. Let's use Northland Woodworks. So you've got 800 on the list, and let's just say you double it for a bunch of builders. Let's just call it 2,000 people that want to go to a showroom. How are you logistically setting these? I don't totally follow how you're setting up the times and days.
Well, we've got the times and the days already laid out. And at this point, as this podcast is airing, we'll have them all selected. But people will showrooms will submit their ideas for what fun thing they want. And then we as a board will do a lottery, and we'll pick the 16 showrooms, and we'll place them to their time slots.
So so 16. Am I going to pick one Wednesday and hit all 16? Am I going to hit 4? How does this?
However it fits for your
So it's not like a bus tour. It's not all at once. It's kind of like your own buffet. Go at your own pace. Do whichever ones you want.
Yeah, you'll get an invitation to them all, and you can pick what's convenient.
Yeah, you can pick and choose which ones you want to go to.
Okay.
As an attendee. And there will be limits. Some showrooms won't be able to handle as many people.
How do you set?
So
you have to
RSVP.
Yep.
On Eventbrite. Yep. And then
each showroom is going to set their own limit depending on how many they can take.
I'm just thinking of and maybe you've already done this, but like how successful your bus tours were. Is there a way that you can sort of harness that for the tour?
Future ideas.
Yeah, future ideas.
You start in the morning, because that's what I would be interested in. I can go to some of these tours, but mainly the main reason I'm going is to be kind of just taken, so I don't have to think about it around the cities. And you start with coffee in the morning, get on this bus, and it's a whole day.
All right, you're writing this down, right?
And you hit up each. I mean, I would do that.
You would?
Yeah, for sure I would.
Awesome.
And it's like, because as already mentioned, a lot of times people try to get us out to. It's not that I don't want to. It's mainly a function of time. But it's a great use of time. I know you get a lot of builders, and heck, we could do a WINC Curious Builder collab on this. We could each do a couple buses. I'll do all the builders. Whatever it is, we could figure it out. Yeah. But you get a couple buses, and I think that would be dynamic.
Yeah,
so fun.
It's a great idea. I think this one's coming up in July, so it's
too soon to change now. But
I love what you're saying, and the best part about us as the WINC board, and one of my favorite parts of being on the board is how willing we are to grow and change and to take in new ideas. I mean, like last year we had Showroom Shimmy, and there were things right away we were like, all right, this didn't work, this could be better. And so we'll grow and evolve, and next year maybe we'll do it like that. And we're really good at let's prove ourselves a little at a time, and then we'll take on more and more.
Yeah.
And last year was the first time we did that.
Yeah.
And that was
it successful?
I think so. I think it could have been better, and that's why we changed it this year.
Yeah.
It was just a lot for the showrooms to handle, and a lot for the members to handle. Like, they weren't able to go to every event that they wanted to go to, or to every showroom that they wanted to go to. And so this year we're going to make it easier for everyone to attend.
How many people fit on a bus?
50.
54 if you don't have coolers.
Yeah.
on the seats.
If you put the coolers below the bus.
You sit on the bus. Oh, you guys got this thing down, man. I'm just thinking about, I mean, the busing industry, this is going to go back to your trucking. Forget buses. You have to load them in the trucks.
We're going to have to, we'll save up for our own WINC bus.
Drivers.
Save up for our own bus.
That is great. As we just come in for the end, one, I guess just two last questions. One is, tell me a little bit about the WINC circles. I like your 3 C's: confidentiality, communication, and commitment. I'm guessing these are small groups that exist outside the once a month. Tell me a little bit about how these are organized and what it looks like and what you're seeing out of it.
Well, Kristen Reinitz actually started the circles. It was her idea, and she had done something similar in the AV industry. And so she brought that idea in and basically sent out an email. Who wants to be involved in this? Who wants to be in a small mentorship group? And everyone that wanted to be in said, I'm in. And she organized the first round of circles. And then people would just continue to meet as they wanted to meet. We would provide some content to discuss, if people needed something to discuss. But basically what has happened is it's just turned into really tight partnerships, friendships, mentorships for these circle groups that have stuck with it.
What are the size of the circle groups, or did you?
5 or 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
5
And
to
how
7.
many of them are there?
I think there's 4 or 5 right now.
Yeah, some have dissipated and some have just gotten so close. And it was so funny. I went to a NARI event and it was a whirly ball event. And this group of girls that I all know from the industry, from WINC, they all showed up in matching T-shirts. And I was like, oh my gosh, how'd you guys plan this? They're all like, we're in a WINC circle together. We've been together for, 2 years now. And it's so cool to see because, and we used to have preset topics for them. But now they just say, we love the preset topics, but we all have so much to talk about anyway. So, they just have connected that way.
Have you, and I had mentioned this to Leah, just before we came on, I'm in love with what you're doing, and I think it's so needed for the industry, for the people. I mean, there's nothing but great things happening here, and I love what you're doing. I'm looking a little bit market potential, across the United States. I'm like, every state needs this. Are there other states that have, and other cities that have things like this? And yes or no? And then B, have you ever thought about franchising this and what could this become?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting because in the, I mentioned with Welch, I'm in the commercial world as well. And in the commercial world, there are maybe 3 different women's networking groups, maybe 4. It's a thing. But for some reason here in the single family world, it wasn't here. So across the country, I don't know what it looks like, but we've talked about it before. If someone comes to us and says, hey, how do I start a WINC in my market? We would love to help them. And that could be part of our growth in the future to franchise. We definitely wouldn't say no.
Mm-hmm. Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Curious Builder podcast. I appreciate it. We'll have, all the WINCs, WINC taglines in the show notes. I assume is it WINC.com? Or?
WINCMN.org.
WINCMN.org. Okay, we'll have that all in the show notes, and then we'll obviously have you guys' contacts as well. If someone wants to reach out to you directly, what's the best way to do that? Is that through the website? Or?
Yep, through the website. All of our contact information is on there. And then becoming a member is easy. Actually, just go on the website, click Become a Member, and then you'll start getting our emails. So, again, there's no membership fee or anything. So
and it takes 1 minute.
Yeah,
super easy.
Literally takes a minute or less.
Wonderful. Well, I can attest to how great you each are individually, but also your organization, what you're doing is admirable and wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. We are happy to announce that we have a one-to-one coaching session that can be found on our Curious Builder podcast platform. So you can book a time with me, and it'll be 1 hour to ask any sort of questions that you want, talk about business, talk about life, talk about scheduling. Maybe you're dealing with a difficult client and you just want to maybe shop with another builder and say, hey, how do I handle this? Or maybe you're looking to rebrand your company. Whatever it might be, you can head to our website and book a time, and I'd be happy to sit down and give you that hour, and we can talk about whatever's on your mind. We're excited to announce that we have partnered with Harness Workwear. They're an amazing shirt company. I'm actually wearing it right now if you're on YouTube. Softest shirt I've ever had. Also the most durable. There's a reason these guys make shirts for workwear. If you head to our Curious Builder webpage under the merch channel, you'll see we have a limited time only of our pre-launch of the Curious Builder shirt. We also have our new monogram that's going to be on the back with a cool little custom tag. If you want to support the show, if you want to support what you're listening and small businesses, both for Harnish as well as the Curious Builder, please go there, buy a shirt, buy two, give one to one of your colleagues, maybe one of the tradesmen that you think might like the show, and you're supporting a small business and you're supporting this podcast. So I appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like what you listen to, please give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It really means a lot. It's a great way for us to just understand what you like about the podcast and what we can keep doing. So like and review, and please share with your friends and family. Find out more at curiousbuilderpodcast.com.